boxing.
Okay, welcome back to Boxing on the Edge. Thank you for tuning in. I hope everybody had a good holiday. I hope everyone's new year was good. I know you're sick of hearing that, but I just wanted to wish everybody well for 2022. Big, massive shout out to Hatman. Big shout out to Chris Andre. Thank you very much for having me on your channel the other day. We was on there with Outmatch. Big shout out to Sonny. I'll leave the link in the description so you can check that video out if you want. We were just chopping up boxing for 30-40 minutes. Had a good time. And then big shout out to G-Man Boxing, the gunslinger of the YouTube channels. He'll have his post-fight video up before you've probably turned your TV off. So big shout out to all those, and a massive shout out to any newcomers and new subs to the channel as well. I hope you enjoy all the content. Now, let's talk some boxing. Okay, so Joe Smith Jr. was set to fight Callum Johnson this coming Saturday. Callum Johnson had to pull out from these new protocols that have been shoehorned into boxing, and unfortunately for him, he's going to miss out on a world title. You know, it was a voluntary as well. Will he get given the opportunity again by Joe Smith? You know, he's not going to earn any money, and he probably paid out a bunch of money for all the training camp and stuff. So I feel for him. You know, it would have been a fantastic fight as well while it lasted, but as a late replacement, Steve Geffrard has been brought in. So we're going to talk about that. That fight is in New York, in Verona, upstate. Joe Smith territory, really. It's for Joe Smith's WBO belt, which he won, in quotations, against Maxim Vlasov. Now, I watched this fight again the other day and scored it. I usually don't score fights when I'm watching them. I just try to enjoy it. But there's no way Joe Smith won this fight. You know, like, he was getting really, you know, outmaneuvered, outthought, and, you know, like, Vlasov's style was a little too much for him, and he was getting put on the back foot, and Smith is not very good at fighting on the back foot. And at the very best, you could have squeezed the draw, but that, you know, even that was generous. I had Vlasov winning by 1 or 2 rounds, but nonetheless, Joe Smith's WBO belt is on the line this coming Saturday, and Steve Geffrard is the man to dethrone him. So let's start with Joe Smith Jr. You know, what is there not to like about him? I think every boxing fan deep down probably likes the blue collar, almost Rocky story, union worker, just a construction, old school throwback fighter, you know. Always comes to win, always puts it on his opponents, never gives up, and he showed that in the Bivol fight when he was getting outed quite easily. And but he's very tenacious. He never gave up, and he ended up hurting Bivol in the last punch of the 10th round. And that just shows that, you know, even no matter how many punches he takes, no matter how many he misses, he always believes he's going to win. And I love that. And that's what makes him, you know, somewhat of a fan favorite after he kind of came to prominence by knocking B-Hop out of the ring. So, yeah, Joe Smith Jr., again, like, he's going to come to win. He's going to come to defend his title, and he's got more after that. You know, there's some big fights on the horizon for him. The Canelo fight is being spoken about. He even wants to fight Beterbiev, which is something you don't hear that often, which is another reason why it's nice to have him in the sport. You know, people that want to fight the best, I'm all for that. So yeah, that's Joe Smith Jr. Moving on to his opponent, Steve Geffrard. Take your hat off to him. Late replacement. Barely 2 weeks for this guy to get his stuff together. And you know, there's very little footage of him out there. There are a couple of videos that have surfaced of him, you know, fighting what look like journeymen for 1 or 2 rounds. So like, he looks okay, to be fair. He's got a fairly crisp technique, but again, you know, it really depends who you're fighting. And probably the less I say about the 2 guys he's fighting, the better. But you know, he has actually sparred with Kovalev many times in the past and helped him prepare for fights when Kovalev was actually Kovalev. So you don't get brought into a training camp over and over if you're, if you don't know what you're doing, or if you can't, bring something to the table. So that was encouraging. He's also sparred with Buatsi. We all know Joshua Buatsi, and he's also sparred with Alida Alvarez, who actually beat Kovalev and then lost to him. But so he's had some good experience in terms of sparring. His first 2 fights he actually lost. He got knocked out in his first fight, or stopped in his first fight, lost his second fight, and then he's won every one since. So that says a lot about his character as well, albeit against very, very low opponents. His best name is Denis Grachev, and to say he's over the hill or was over the hill would probably be incorrect. I mean, whatever's passed over the hill is Grachev. Anyway, so we'll see how he does. He hasn't had much time to prepare. Obviously, he's fighting away from home. First world title shot. First real, big step up. We know Joe Smith is a little limited, but what he does well, and he never gives up, like I said. So it should be more interesting than what it sounds, I think. And we're gonna actually now get onto the fight plan itself. So I think obviously Joe Smith Jr. is gonna come forward and apply as much pressure as he can. In the Vlasov fight, I think he got exposed a little bit because he cannot fight going backwards. His defense isn't great, his footwork isn't great, but his punch selection and everything just seems to fall apart when he's going back. So if Geffrard can push him back and get on the front foot, it could make things interesting. He should have been able to take a lot from that Vlasov fight in terms of game plan. Whether he can or not, whether he's strong enough or whether he believes himself enough is another thing. I'd expect Joe Smith Jr. to come out on the front foot and do what he does, throw those two jabs to make his way in, and then that big overhand right. Joe Smith Jr.'s got a good left hook as well. We know he's powerful. He's going to put it on his opponent and probably outwork Stephen Geffrard. Joe, I think 2 punches to look out for, I'd say. Obviously, Joe Smith's overhand right, which he can sneak in there from close quarters as well. But he's better off coming in off those jabs. He doesn't set it up with, too much intelligence, but he often finds a target. So you can't really complain about that. And then Geffrard's best punch looks like it's his left hook. He throws it with some crispness and some accuracy. So when Smith is coming in with that overhand right, there's definitely a little bit of time and room for a left hook counter. So this is assuming he's going backwards. Hopefully he can do that, but obviously he looks like he's got a decent jab as well. He's going to have to use his jab and use his legs if he's going to get pushed back. But honestly, my sample size of him is very small, so I don't have much to go on here. So this fight plan or breakdown might not be the most detailed because of that. But I do expect Smith to come in and do what he normally does and put it on his opponents, outwork them, maybe end up landing a couple of big shots here and there. And I actually think this fight might go the distance just based on Geffrard's, sparring. As crazy as that sounds, like if you can hang in there with Kovalev, even in sparring, and you're getting brought in by all these other camps, that says a lot. And obviously, there's way more to it than that. But I'm gonna go with a Joe Smith Jr. points win, probably a unanimous decision, just on the small size that I have. It's a lot to ask Geffrard to come in and do the business. So I think a points victory for Joe Smith is probably looking the most likely. Or, again, I have no idea what his chin's like, Geffrard. So it should be interesting. And then, that's the fight this coming Saturday. So I hope everybody enjoys the fight this Saturday. If you have any comments about it, if you know anything about Steve Geffrard, let me know in the comment section. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of the week. and enjoy the fight on Saturday. All right, Boxing on the Edge. I'm out. Have a good one.
Boxing. On the edge.